"I told you so" is a phrase that gets thrown around a lot. So get it out now, write your comments, and we can just get straight into things. Hytale has officially been cancelled. I haven't uploaded in 3 months, so did I know? Well, no. I had 2 videos in the works. I was planning a feature-length documentary, and when I last spoke to the team, everything seemed fine. So this really has hit me like a ton of bricks. Now, Quebecs don't swear, so I'll save the profanities for any future live streams or content I may end up doing, but the CEO of Hypixel Studios, Noxy, tweeted on June 23rd that he had shared some incredibly tough news with the Hypixel Studios team, that they are ending the development of Hytale and will also be closing down. So not just telling us, but they just told the team. Riot has officially pulled the plug on the game. They've cut their losses after hundreds of millions have probably been invested into this project. Noxy said this is not the outcome any of us at Hypixel or at Riot wanted, but after years of pushing forward, adapting, trying to explore possibilities in every path, it became clear that they couldn't bring Hytale to life in a way that truly delivered on that promise. I mean, maybe they just had their blinders on for a while and assumed that they did have that vision and that they were aiming in the right direction, but maybe it is just a case of, you know, being in an echo chamber for years, developing a game, assuming that it's all going to work out perfectly, and then in reality, when you step outside and look at things from the perspective of, say, like a Riot executive or an investor in the game, it suddenly becomes a lot more complicated. And sadly, that's just the truth of game development. This is the industry, and we've seen this happen time and time again. Noxy said it's especially hard when you're trying to build something original that speaks to creative, passionate communities, and that over time, as their vision evolved and the genre matured around them, the bar just kept on rising. They wanted to do more technically, they wanted to get more complex, and even after a major reboot of the game engine, having to go back and rewrite everything, it apparently became clear to them that they'd need a lot more time to get it to a place where it could support the ambitious vision that they had. I want to stop for a minute because I don't want to just read out what he tweeted. I want to take a second to just, you know, take this impact and a deep breath with you guys. It's not often that I go improv and avoid a script for a video, but in this one, I really do only have a few bullet points. I want to talk from the heart, and besides reading out this tweet, I just wanted to let you guys know that, you know, I get it. It sucks. We've been waiting for this game for 6 years, and to hear this, you know, the cold, hard truth of it is something that, from our perspective, doesn't make any sense. You know, they've been communicating with us, and they've been saying that their communication has been transparent and updated, so it does hurt to know that deep down on the inside, they knew that they weren't reaching what they needed to reach to get to where they needed to be. They tried to reduce scope, they adjusted timelines, they tried to find new angles to keep moving forward, but just every time that they had an option, it meant compromising on what made Hytale special in the first place. They were just going to end up with another standard game, you know, just one of these titles that doesn't change the industry, and we know that Hypixel Studios wanted to do that from the get-go. He said this is a painful decision, but we still believe in Hytale, we believe in the team, and are forever grateful of every member, past or present, who poured their love into the game. We're also incredibly proud of the work we did, the world we imagined, the risks we took, and the heart we poured into the project. None of that can be taken away, and just to clarify, this doesn't affect anyone in the Hypixel server on Minecraft. It's run separately from Hypixel Studios and will continue to operate. So a nice clarification there, and it's good to see that the team still believe in Hytale. That phrase is, you know, a little bit abstract. What does that mean? Does it mean that they still believe in all of the things that made Hytale what it is, all of the things that it stood for as a game, as a platform? Or does it mean that they still believe in it as a project, that they want to trying to get this to other game publishers that may pick this up or maybe reinvest in it? That aside, you probably imagine everyone is pointing their fingers at Riot. It was Riot that's done this. It's them that's cut the team off. It's them that's closed down the game. And, you know, they had to address that, of course. They said they're deeply grateful to Riot, not just for the years of support and opportunities that they gave, but for the care, showing their team how to grow during the transition. Apparently, they supported them in going out into the world as well to see if there were any extra investors or acquirers who maybe wanted to carry Hytale forward or buy it from Riot. And now, as they begin winding things down, they're ensuring that their team is supported with generous severance and resources to help them find what's next. So clear from that statement that they did actually try to go and find buyers for Hytale, but apparently were unsuccessful, which isn't a surprise because it's a big project with hundreds of millions invested into it. So to buy the thing would probably be an immense amount of money, and I imagine all the other studios are distracted working on their own things. Not to mention, the team originally did have lots of offers from these big companies back in 2020, it was them that chose Riot out of the pool of people that were trying to invest in the game. They say to their community, thank you. Your belief in Hytale kept us going through thick and thin. Your energy, creativity, and support inspired us to do the best work of our lives. And even though we won't be the ones to bring this game into the world, we still believe in what it stood for and in the incredible potential of this genre. So again, alluding to the idea that maybe Hytale can be brought into the world in some way, just not by this team. Noxy finishes by saying, even though we're closing this chapter, the spirit of Hytale and everything we hoped it could be will stay with us. We're proud of what we built and we'll carry those lessons forward for whatever comes next. A lovely sentiment, I'm sure, but this is, it's disappointing news. It's really rocked everyone for 10 in the community. I hopped into a VC with a bunch of people when this news dropped. You can imagine my phone amongst anyone in the world was vibrating at an unnatural speed. Like, that thing was going crazy. I woke up and just beep, 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 message DMs from every YouTuber that I've ever mentioned Hytale to, people just sharing it and talking about it in Discords, messages from even people on the team. It's just been non-stop and crazy. So obviously, like, I've had to take a little deep breath and realize, oh, this, means, yeah, that game that I cover on that channel, it's not going to be out. It's not going to come to fruition. And yeah, that does suck, but things continue onwards. As I say, like, while it sucks for me, covering news on the game has been a lot of fun over the years, it sucks more for the team. This channel, Quebec Corner, is a hobby of mine, and it's a privileged hobby. I enjoy covering the news for this game that isn't out yet, but I'm lucky enough behind the scenes to be working with a bunch of really cool creators and channels. Like, I consult on things, I come on and do strategy, I grow teams, and even help coach different parts of their production pipeline, like editing and their script writing, to make better content. That's what I do full time. You don't need to worry about me. The team are the ones who lose out here. They were really getting amped up for this big part of the year. It was key for them to bring all of these components of the game together. They were bringing out the new engine, they were polishing all of the different environments, and they were going to bring combat and multiplayer and all of these different things together in one final big year. But they've clearly had a freeze. They stopped mentioning anything or communicating at all a couple of months ago. Riot probably gave them like 6 months after January, and they just couldn't deliver on what was promised or what was needed. They ran out of time. And a few of John's tweets, he's the game director for Hytale, by the way, if you're new to this, he clarified multiple times that the game has been frozen by Riot. This was a Riot decision, and that they ran out of time. That they had the plan in place, they had all the pieces of the puzzle, but Riot just weren't willing to wait that extra time. I imagine probably something to do with release dates and how publishers work is Riot probably wanted it out by the end of the year or next year, 2026, and the team were probably hell-bent on saying that they won't get out until it's perfect, and that being somewhere like 2027, and Riot then putting their foot down and saying, well, if you can't get it in 2026, if you can't reach these milestones, then unfortunately we're going to cut the game. And it does seem like, in some way John's clarifying that this is, he's lending credence to this sort of thing happening, is that the Riot set this deadline and they just weren't able to meet it, even though they were really well equipped and they had all the troops on the field. They just couldn't hit that bar that Riot had set. I know this for sure caught the team off guard. I'm sure that it was a massive surprise to all of these team members that have been working on the game and pouring their heart and soul into it for years, to hear this the same day that more or less all of us are hearing it. I imagine some of upper management was aware of the issue and was aware of the impending doom, so to speak, but I had correspondence with the team right up until this announcement, so it was really something that did happen this day and has shocked everyone, and it was clearly a decision that was sort of finalized and written into stone. So yeah, that sucks. At the end of the day, I look back at Hytale, I think the bar just kept getting raised. They were constantly trying to outrun that 5 years of debt that they put into that old engine that they never released. And that's the first thing everyone's gonna say is, why didn't they just release something? Why now, even when they've stopped it? Just put out something. Do an early access, like paid subscription, or throw out a build, or leak it, or just we'll crowdfund it. All of these different suggestions. To me, this seems like a pretty full stop. There's no image on the blog post, there's no tease. It is a very short statement from Noxy, the CEO. Almost, I say it feels rushed. Obviously it was worded very well, and I'm sure a lot of thought went into those words, but it does feel quite abrupt. There's nothing after this, and I feel like this could very well be the last piece of communication we ever get from Hypixel Studios and Hytale as a project. You know, whether it continues onwards in spirit is another story, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But, you know, I think this might be the full stop. I don't think that we're going to get some sort of test build unless it's something that gets leaked, you know. I can imagine that leaks are maybe even more possible now with people maybe feeling bitter that they lost their positions. But again, it's hard to tell because, you know, a lot of people may have been absorbed by Riot. You know, Riot is aware that this team is very capable and strong, and so I can imagine that quite a few people have maybe found positions. But even the Riot MMO, I believe, has been cancelled or delayed or something at the same time that announcement went out. So it's stormy waters for all of the devs, and they're the people that I think need to be looked at and considered. And I've seen so many devs tweeting today, I'll share some on the screen, about just how, I guess, you know, devastated they are and upset, and how much Hytale meant to them. And, you know, a lot of fans are obviously feeling that somber attitude as well, and I get it. It sucks. Like, I'm talking real, you know, not really scripting this video like I mentioned, because it's just, you know, like an aftermath. I wanted it to be reactive so that you guys can sort of level with me here, because it may just be one of the... It's certainly not the last time that I'll be talking about Hytale on the channel, because there's a big story that needs to be told here, right? And that's clear that, you know, I feel like I'm probably one of the only people that can tell that story and do it justice. So whether it's communicating with the team or getting any official sort of facts and stuff clarified, and then, you know, telling that story is definitely a plan of mine. Obviously, it won't be this video. Yeah, I can only imagine the Reddit right now is probably absolutely ridiculous. Like, there's probably so many memes and there's so many I told you so's. And look, I'm one of those people that went out and told some pretty huge notable creators about Hytale, and you know, I'm always touting it with my friends and talking about it when I'm not talking about other things. And so it's gonna suck. I'm gonna go through that period of just people saying I told you so, or like, oh, Hytale never worked out, and I get that. But like, things have got to move on and things have got to evolve. At the end of the day, I'm a YouTuber, I'm a creator, and this channel was made to test the boundaries of what I could do as a creator. Obviously, I settled for Hytale and covering Hytale news, and it was working out pretty well up until now. I've got other plans on the schedule though. I had plenty of plans to pivot towards more general gaming industry, video essays, and different documentaries in that style. So I think I want to go more down that route, a sort of investigative, journalistic sort of approach to some of those things. Maybe talking a bit more about game development, or maybe other games. Again, like we've got Vintage Story and lots of other titles that kind of scratch that similar itch to Hytale. Obviously, nothing will ever come again, I don't think, that will ever get the breadth of and scope of attention that Hytale did. But I think that there's probably things to fill the gap in the meantime while we transition over to figure out what we want to do. But either way, I'm a YouTuber. I'm going to create content that I'm passionate about, and I've been doing that with channels for the last 10 plus years now. So I'm more than capable of figuring out a pivot on this channel as well. Obviously, if you're here for Hytale news, there's going to be, you know, bits and bobs talking about the aftermath of all of this and, you know, what it really means and stuff like that. But I just ask that you give me some patience and check out a few of the videos that are coming up, because I think that the content is still going to interest you. I think it's around the same audience. I want to make sure that I am targeting the same type of viewers and with content that they would still want to watch, so that I'm not completely pivoting. Don't worry, I'm not going to just out of nowhere become a Roblox channel. That's not going to happen. Although I may make a video essay about Roblox. That's the thing, is I'm kind of an open book now. I can make videos about pretty much any game I want, and I'm not so limited to that idea, that constraint of Hytale. I have to make Hytale. I don't want to go out of the Hytale audience, the Hytale eye. I want to be there when the game comes out, so that I have that momentum and that ability to create content within the ecosystem. Without that constraint, it almost feels like there's a weight lifted off my shoulders. Weirdly enough, I was talking with a few other Hytale creators, which, yes, there are still a few of us left in the world, and they feel the same. They feel like this weight has been lifted in a way, and not in the greatest way. It would be great if it was by the game coming out, but the idea that the waiting took so long, it was painful, and getting some clarity, as 30virus put it in his tweet, you know, some sort of semblance of, okay, that's the answer, and now I know going forward, so at least I know, rather than having to constantly bet on a game that is, you know, being delayed and taking a long time. And I know that some of you feel that way. I always get comments of people saying, oh, the game's irrelevant, I've completely forgot about it, oh, I've just remembered about this game, and that's totally cool, but like, we all had it in the back of our minds. Today especially, you see so many people tweeting about it that you probably thought didn't even know what Hytale was, and there they are tweeting about it because they just remember it so viscerally. That trailer, 60 million views. I mean, I think it was 50 million or 40 million at the time, and it just did so well, and it got into so many people's heads that, yeah, I think it's a moment in time that we'll never forget. And I think one of the most important things about all this is the community. My god, the community behind Hytale is incredible. Like, obviously when the trailer came out, there was a lot of people that were fanboying over the game and they were really excited. Lots of people making fan art and all of these different things. But over time, the retention of the community has been so well maintained. There is just this brilliant, it's probably like a subgroup of maybe 1,000 to like 500 people that are all really talented in different ways, and they all collaborate and know each other and talk about things, and their shared bond of Hytale is like the bedrock of that. But on top of that, there's a whole world, an ecosystem that has grown. I've seen so many people go on to become YouTubers covering different games, or artists working for other game development studios, or even modelers and server makers, all sorts of different sort of creatives in that realm go on to work, you know, for different places and different games and everything else in between. Some of them have gone on to work for the Hytale team themselves. It's always a constant reminder to me that there's great things found in the weirdest, almost unusual of places. I mean, yes, we are all hyper fixated on this game that never came out, but at the same time, through that, we've all networked. I found a lot of friendship and education and talent connections through this network, and also a lot of friends. You know, I hate to say, oh, it's friends that we made along the way, but really it is. And if you haven't been part of like a deeper Hytale community, maybe you understand that from the sense of like a subreddit or some sort of Discord that you're a part of, or a group of friends. Like, that's the sense that we have in this ecosystem. You have people that are actively making art for others and collaborating on a friendship level, and you have people working together professionally and creating development teams. All of that is going to continue to go on. That's going to continue to thrive regardless of Hytale being out or not. And it has done for the last 6 years. It's behind the scenes, and maybe you haven't noticed it, but it really has. I feel like because I constantly cover Hytale, it's almost impossible for me to fully demonstrate just where all of these people from the initial Hytale community have ended up and what amazing things they're doing in all of these other places on the internet are. But I can 100% for a fact point out a few in this video, and eventually I will do a video covering just how crazy these hyperfixated communities can become as a shared passion develops into a real community. You know, not an echo chamber or a cult or anything weird like that, just a shared sense of community, which then springs into something a lot more, especially in these times where you've got like AI and all these crazy things. It's nice to have a creative community, people who just want to collaborate and make things together. There was never a 0% chance that this could happen. Like, we all kind of, as the years went on, believed that if this happened, it would be easier to accept and make sense of, because, you know, the project just might fizzled out. But the way that they were communicating, it gave us hope, and, you know, that sucks. I definitely can't ever trust a game studio again, and I say that with a high heart filled with hope for the team. I love the team. I think that they're all brilliant. I have a poster with amazing words of wisdom and of love from the team members that I got when I visited them at the studio. But when I say that I'm gonna have problems trusting a team in the future, I really mean that on the corporate level. On the publisher's side, on the developer's side, PR is a fickle thing, and I understand that social media and all of the intricacies of having to communicate with a fan base can be hard. There's politics and there's legal things that you've got to check. It's a minefield, and it's best to play it safe. So I can understand where Hypixel Studios may not have been entirely transparent with some of their circumstances, especially wanting to avoid worrying us and to avoid a rush of negativity, especially when they're probably trying to sell to their publisher that they're still worth betting. I think one of the big things that I want to point out is that I, and clearly a lot of other people, have enjoyed this journey of following along with the content updates. I mean, I know that I don't get the most views as every YouTuber, but I certainly get quite a number of views, and it speaks to the volumes of people that are constantly coming back and interested in this game. That spirit, that energy is going to continue onward, whether it's through someone who watches these videos, you know, a young budding developer that's part of the community, or even some other iteration of Hypixel Studios that may form, you know, in the future. Who knows what's possible? But someone will take that spirit, that thought process, that inspiration, and go on to maybe build one of the biggest platforms in gaming history. And maybe that is still something that we can all get excited about one day. Sadly, it isn't today, and, you know, I've not got the energy that I usually have because of that fact. But, you know, hey, GTA 6 is on the horizon, so we can still look forward to that, despite it being delayed. But hey, you all deserve to have to wait for a game just as much as I have. I really do feel for some of the members in the community as well. Like, some people have really dedicated their entire life and their, you know, prospective future on this game. Like, they've bet that they can develop servers and create mini games in this ecosystem. And so for that to all fall through is going to be a big loss. And from the outside, I can totally see how it's easy to mock it and say, haha, we all knew Hytale was a flop from the start. We all knew it was going to fail. We've said it countless times. I mean, yeah, we get it. Like I said, you can imagine my DMs and my Twitter right now are just constant people reminding me of that. I take it as a noble loss though, because honestly, covering Hytale was always going to be a big gamble. That's why no one in the world was doing it except me and maybe like 5 other people after a certain amount of years. For me, Quebec Corner was a long shot bet that didn't have much riding on it. I was always learning how to do YouTube through the channel, and I was always having fun making the content in my spare time when I wasn't doing my main job, so I was constantly benefiting from that, and as long as the team were putting out news, I was having fun covering it. If Hytale failed, I knew that this channel wasn't my full-time job and I wasn't relying on that, but the huge benefits I would have reaped from Hytale succeeding would have massively outweighed any loss that I'm facing today, so hopefully you can see that mentality and why I'm not super upset about the loss here. It's not like I've gambled away 6 years of my life. I have been doing other really cool fun stuff behind the scenes, traveling the world. Please make sure to go and support all of the team members that have been affected by this. I'll link some of their tweets in the description. This does give me permission to go a little experimental on your asses, because in the coming weeks I will be testing out different formats and possible angles for videos, so bear with me and be patient as I try to figure that out. If you want to give me the chance, stay safe and keep free.